5 tips to keep your wildlife footage more stable. So typically you want your wildlife footage to be as stable as possible. Now with shorter focal lengths, like 50mm, this is not too much of a problem because either IBIS on your camera or even just hand holding your footage and stabilizing it in post will be fairly easy. But with a long lens, there are additional challenges. So what can you do to make your wildlife footage with a long lens more stable? Number 1, use a tripod. Of course, the best advice is to use a tripod because a tripod is going to get you the most stable footage. Even though you can get some stable footage without a tripod, nothing will come close to using a good stable tripod. Tip number 2, if you're panning at all, use a video fluid head. Most photographers have a ball head, and this is a really good tool for still photography, but it doesn't work very well for panning. You can pan with a ball head and the results are going to be, frankly, terrible. Whereas a video fluid head is going to make your pans really smooth. Now the downside of a video fluid head is that it's a little expensive. You can get a cheaper fluid head, and that's still going to be better than a ball head. But if you want really smooth pans, expect to spend at least $500 on a fluid head, probably more. Tip number 3. If you don't have a tripod, sit down and balance, or use a post. This technique won't get you as good footage as with a tripod, but if you sit down and balance your camera on your camera bag, or balance your camera on a post while holding the post with your hands, then your footage is going to be fairly stable and at least usable. Tip number 4. Activate your camera's stabilization. Most mirrorless cameras today have some sort of stabilization, like IBIS, and so activating this will make your footage more stable. Some lenses, in fact a lot of long lenses, have stabilization systems like VR or optical stabilization, and those often work a little better than just IBIS alone, so you could also activate that. Finally, some cameras have additional stabilization options like electronic stabilization in addition to the IBIS on your camera, so check out those options and play around with them. You might find a certain combination works really well. Now don't expect again your camera to do a very good job all on its own without additional stabilization for a long lens, but it can help. Tip number 5, stabilize your footage in post. If you just have a few jitters in your footage, you can stabilize it in post in an editor like DaVinci Resolve. This won't eliminate really shaky footage, but with small jitters, stabilized footage can look pretty decent. I hope these 5 tips help you stabilize your wildlife footage, but if they don't, take up landscape photography.